start to cry.
So in today's video, we're going to be doing we're going to be using this textured paste to create some wall 3D designs and like a wall art. Lately, I've been moving towards extending, because I've done so much with resin over the years, that I'm sort of expanding into other areas that I can combine with my resin. So I've tried acrylic paint pouring, 3D pens, marbling. Now we're going to try some textured paste. I have had this for some time, probably over 12 months or so, and not used it. I have opened it, yesterday in fact, and this is what it looks like. It is thick paste that people use to stencil items onto various things. So like I say, I've never actually worked with this before, so this is all new to me. These pieces are from Resin Decor supplies, and this one I had last Halloween along with a big Halloween one. Yeah, so my idea is, for one of them, we're going to be spray painting them black. So I won't show that process because I'm going to have to take that outside. So I'm going to spray paint this one black, just with normal spray paint, and then we're going to coat this one with the textured paste. But we're going to do two, I think, because we're going to do one that I'm going to paint on afterwards, and then I'm going to do one where I mix mica powder into the paste. So I am using neon and glow in the dark to see if that makes a difference. We might have to end up adding some paint. I have got some iridescent art fly acrylic paint here that gives a gorgeous shimmer when it's popped onto black. So yeah, let's get into it. So this is number 5 of 13 Days of Halloween collaboration, run by Lula from Nerd Goblin Art. Yes, it's been hard work, but it's been a brilliant, fun collaboration. I love this time of the year. I will link the playlist at the end of the video as well as in the description, but there's some absolutely fabulous spooky makes. So after you've watched this video, jump across and take a look at the rest of the collaboration. So I've got a plastic bowl, and I'm just going to scoop a load into this and just see whether the mica powder is going to colour it the way I want it to. So for my mica powder, I'm using the orange red and the neon orange from Let's Resin, and I'm also using some glow powder, so glow in the dark powder from Amazon. I am putting quite a fair bit in just to see if I can get it the right colour. Now, because I hadn't worked with this stuff, I didn't know whether this would make it too thick. I didn't know whether it would even work with mica powder. As far as I was aware, you had to colour textured paste with acrylic paint. At the minute, I'm only trying to make up just enough to get the colour spot on, and that's about right, so I'm adding more paste. So I've got 2 types of textured paste here. This one was off Amazon, and it says paste to texture, 250 mils, which is 8.4 US fluid ounces. And I've also got this one that I bought from Temu, which was a lot cheaper, so we are going to be testing both out to see whether there's a difference. I already know straight away that the one in the packet is going to be far easier for thinner, smaller lines because it's got that nozzle on the end. Whereas with this, all I've got are these little spatula things. So I'm giving it a real good mix to make sure that all that mica powder is all mixed. I hope it glows in the dark. Adding a little bit more paste to it, just so that I've got enough to fill this entire board. Or at least what I think is enough to fill the entire board. So after I was mixing for what felt like an eternity, this still wasn't quite as orange as I wanted. So I'm popping some of the artisan paint into this mixture just to try and get it a bit of a deeper orange. I do in fact pop a little bit of the other orange acrylic paint in it as well, just to get it that pumpkin type of colour. But I was a bit concerned that it would go a bit too runny, so I'm just testing it out on the board to see what colour it was going to be, and it was a little bit too light. So like I said, I added a little bit more of just normal acrylic paint to it. I may have to end up going over it with this colour after it's dry, just to give it that deep orange, I suppose. So I'm just going to pop a load onto this piece. You can see it's a lot darker now, and I'm going to pull it all to the edges. And then I'm literally just going to spread it out and then go in with like little peaks once it's all spread out. Well, that's the idea anyway. Whether it works out like that is a different story. At this point, I'm just slapping it all on and kind of hoping for the best. And to at least sort of look like I know what I'm doing. So I'm going to try my best not to get any paste in the 2 holes at the top of this piece. So I'm just getting my tool and scraping out what paste is in there. I do in fact fill this with just a little bit of paper. But you can always drill them out afterwards, even if it does cover up with it. But the idea is that I want this to be like a 3D on there, like that. So we're going to figure out a way of getting the 3D or that to pop out. So I'm literally just giving it a full coat all the way over. Making sure it goes right to the edges. Don't really want smooth edges either, so we're going to go right the way across. Now you can paint these boards before you use them. I think that even might be a little bit too much. And then we're going to try and pop, once this is dry, or we might actually do it on this one, we're going to pop these little sweetie kind of wrappers, but all over this, but in textured paste. Turns out I figure out something completely way better. I actually did a thing. So after making sure that there's a reasonably equal, even coat across the top of this, I grab a smaller spatula and then I just stipple in the textured paste. That's the word I was looking for. Just to give it that textured look, feel. Stippling, stuppling, staple, anyway, you get the gist. Banging these tools up and down just to make little peaks all across the board. So I'm just adding a little bit more because I want some peaks to be higher than others. I really want this to be rough and textured and, yeah, non-uniformed. Messy, for want of a better word. I then decided to pop just like a little mound in the centre of this piece because I thought, well, why can't I add a lid or something to this in order to give this the 3D look? And the lid will actually stick to this textured paste and dry round it. So I'm just seeing whether that little mound fits behind the spider, because we're going to decorate this piece before we pop it on as well. But I also don't want the mound to be that big that it's going to take 3 or 4 days to dry, unlike the rest of it. Because even though I don't really know a lot about this textured paste, I gather the thicker the layer, the longer it takes to dry. Common sense, I suppose. So I thought I'd pop this in my curing machine, see if that helps. While that's trying to dry, I thought, I haven't got a decent Halloween stencil to pop on this with the paste. But what I have got is some mylar sheets. Now these are just plain mylar sheets. And you can make stencils out of them. So I have got a Cricut machine. So I'm going to have a go at that. Again, never created my own stencil before. But this is proper stencil transfer. There's no difference to that than that. So let's see how this goes. So this was the first time doing this stencil, but I don't think I pressed the right button on the Cricut for the right material. So this is now completed. So let's see if it's actually made a stencil. I mean, you can see it has cut. I wouldn't even know where to start without how to weed these things. Now I don't know whether it's gone all the way through. I don't think it has, so I need to redo it with better pressure, with higher pressure. But I mean, Taz defo made the imprint, so we'll give it another go. So this is take 2. Let's see how this one goes. This time I've put it on a different setting and at a higher depth. So let's have a look to see if this has actually worked. I think it has, yeah. Look at that, wow. Oh, I can't wait for the possibilities for this. And yeah, I do pay for the Cricut Premium, but for £8 a month, the designs on there are just fantastic for the amount I use it. And this is just, well, fab. I'm just trying to peel it off without ripping it. Now, I've sped this bit up for you, but imagine the possibilities. You're never going to have to buy another stencil again for Christmas, Halloween, Easter. Literally, I am so over the moon with finding this out. These mylar stencil pieces are not even that expensive. So I'm not very good at weeding at the best of times. So this did take a while. And at one point, I was even trying to take out the wrong bits. So yeah, this did stress me out slightly. And I did do most of it off camera. But this is like 16 times sped up. And I still had loads to go. Now I've got some acrylic matte black spray. And I am going to take this outside and spray this board with it, back and front. But please wear a mask when using spray paint, because it is really toxic. So I'll be back when this is done. Painted the wood back and front, and I will just be getting an acrylic marker and going around the edges so that you can't see the wood around the edges. Just waiting for that to dry. So this has actually worked. I am so pleased that I can make my own stencils now. I love a good stencil. So this has been sat thickening up. I am going to add just a little bit more orange paint to it because I do want it darker still. Like I say, we may have to paint over it after it's hardened. So as you will have noticed, if you've seen any of my other videos, that this one in particular was a lot live. And that's because doing 13 days of Halloween collabs, the editing has been an absolute nightmare and so lengthy. So I've been trying to get the majority of it done straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. But how cool are these stencils? Now, I've had this mylar sheet in for a good, I'd say 6-8 months and just never used it. And I absolutely love it. Now, this is something, like I said before, that I have never done, particularly with a stencil. So I didn't know whether to slap it on, brush it on, which way to brush it. So yeah, it was becoming a bit messy and I was really worried about getting it underneath the stencil. And then all of a sudden, this happened. And I thought, do you know what? This is quite easy. A flat bit of the spatula, but I'm only dragging this textured paste one way. When I dragged it the other way, it was lifting the stencil up. But this was going on like butter and it was getting into all the gaps and the grooves. I mean, to be honest, I was still convinced it was going to be all one big puddle of mush. So I'm just making sure that I've got an even coat all over this stencil. And I want it to be quite textured, so I don't want it to be completely flat. But then I thought, well, what about the witch on the top? Because there's no textured paste around it, you're not going to tell that it's a witch. So I thought it best to put an edge all the way around this piece, round the edge of the stencil itself, so that you could see the outline and pick out the witch at the top. Since doing this earlier, I thought maybe I should have done it the opposite way, so inverted. That way then the complete stencil is going to be seen. And then I thought, right, here goes nothing. Time to pull off the stencil. So because this is the first time I'd done this, I thought, do I do it like a plaster and just rip it off? Or do I do it gently? So I decided, just rip it off. And you know what? I was quite excited at the prospects of this. Because while I'm doing it, I'm thinking, all those patterns, all those stencils, I'm wondering if it'd work on resin. I know it works on canvas, so I can't wait to try it on both. So after touching a little hat up to give a solid line, this is how cool it looks, and they're easily washable so you can reuse them. So while I was waiting for that to dry in my curing machine, I decided that I was going to spray paint this heart black as well. Now there's lots of ways that you can create a piece like this. You can fill it with resin, you can paint it, you can do all sorts with it, but I wanted that 3D look. So I wanted to paint the spider web white, but I want it to glow in the dark. So I've got some neon white powder from Let's Resin, as well as some white glow in the dark paste. I mixed it all up and I wanted to paint the spider's web with this. It was a lot more difficult than I first anticipated, to be honest. So I'm just going to pop you on fast forward while I do speed through this. So while we're speeding through this, I just want to thank Lula from Nerd Goblin Art for creating the 13 Days of Halloween collaboration. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and we're on day 5 so far, so still a long way to go. So the links will be in the description and at the end of the video. There's some fantastic Halloween makes. So pop over and see the rest of the playlist. So while I'm just finishing curing the spider's web, I'm just going over this little red cap with my silver pen. I did try popping glitter on it, but it just wasn't going to work. It was just leaking everywhere. So this is a chrome mirrored marker, and I'm just trying to cover up as much of the red as I can. This is the bit that we're going to pop the spider web on in order to make it look 3D. So the top of this piece is actually going to be covered by the wooden spider. So I'm not too bothered about that, as you can see here. But it was still a bit too plain, so I added a little bit of glitter, black glitter to the spider, as you can see here. And then I'm just trying to figure a way of putting this on top. In the meantime, I've got the same mirrored chrome marker, and I'm just going in, colouring in the witch and the top part of this pumpkin. I didn't want to colour it all in because I just thought that would detract from the contrast of the black and the orange. Particularly in the 3 pumpkins below, because I think they look quite spooky. But as if you've seen my videos before, you'll know I just can't leave it there. It was still a bit too plain. So here are the 2 pieces so far, and I think they look really cool. But we're not quite finished there. There's just a few little extra sparkly touches just to finish these pieces off. So because I did a thing and created my own stencils, I thought it would be quite cool to have a spider related saying around the back of this 3D base. So I've made myself this Creeping It Real stencil. But in order to get it on the piece the way I wanted it, I needed to cut them up into 3 different stencils. And you can see I've literally got millimeters in between the 2 words. So I'm trying ever so carefully not to cut off any part of these 2 words. So after cutting these stencils out, I'm just popping them on this piece to see whereabouts I want to put them. So I finally decide on a placement that I was sort of happy with. Now what I had in my head again, I was really quite excited about, but because I was short on time and I'm having to rush these things, I don't seem to like them as much as I normally would have done if I'd have took my time. So now I've got them in place, I'm mixing up some more textured paste, and I'm using some craft resin black mica powder to try and make this a grey kind of black. After giving it a good mix, it still wasn't dark enough, so I got out the black acrylic paint. Now I'm just popping a drop in. This was in fact just normal black acrylic paint from the works. It was supposed to have been £6, but I got these for £3 a bottle, so I ended up getting 3 black and 3 white. It's fantastic for paint pouring, and you can see the size of the bottles, they're massive. Even if I didn't need the acrylic paint, I probably would have bought it just because it was at the price it was. I love a good bargain. So I'm mixing up just a little touch of glitter within this paste. Now you couldn't see the glitter at all, so that answered that question for me. This stencil was particularly difficult because it was a wording stencil. There's only 3 different fonts that you can use as stencils on the Cricut Design Space app. Because if they'd have just been normal words, again we'd have had the same issue like the witch. You wouldn't have been able to see what they were. But because this piece was already textured, there wasn't a flat level surface to pop all this other textured paste down and create the letters, and I could already see that it was going underneath. I thought, all this work and I've just gone and ruined it. So it was time to just rip off the band-aid, and you can see it's not quite sticking down. So again, fingers crossed and hope for the best. Now the basis of the words was there, but you couldn't quite see what they were. So rather than going over it and completely messing it up, I got a little micro brush and just filled in the rest of these letters. It was the only way I could think of finishing it off without it looking a complete mess. I mean, I'm not very good at weeding at the best of times, but because these were stencil letters, it was so difficult to weed, and the gaps were so small. So because the rest of filling in the letter was pretty much a disaster, you didn't need to see that. And I wanted to finish this piece off with a little bit of sparkly bling, because you can see this textured paste wasn't as textured and deep as I wanted it to be. It had kind of settled when I popped it into my curing machine to dry. So I've got these little silver ghosts and little black holographic spiders that I want to pop onto this piece. So to do this, I've just got some Elmer's glue and I pop it into a little tub. And I'm just grabbing my tweezers and picking up these little tiny mirrored ghosts, dipping them in the glue and then sticking them on the front of this piece. But 1, this was really fiddly. 2, it kept slipping out of the tweezers. And 3, I didn't want any glue on the fronts of these mirrored ghosts because they were mirrored. And if this glue dried clear on them, you'd see like a smudge. So again, rethink, and I started to use my fingers, but I still had the same problem. The glue was still getting all over the fronts of these little ghosts. So next best thing, I decided to just pop a little bit on a piece of vinyl, dip them in my finger and then stick them onto this piece, trying not to get any glue on the front. But this time I've got a little cotton wool bud and just giving the fronts of them a wipe just to bring them back to that mirrored finish. So I've sped this bit up for you because we're nearly finished, but I thought this was just the perfect little finishing touch just for this piece. So now it's time to finish the other piece. It's time to stick this piece on. Now this is fully cured. I do kind of like that a bit better now it's a bit sparklier. So we're going to do that by using part A and part B epoxy hardener and resin. For this you don't need a UV lamp, it cures very quickly in a couple of minutes. You just literally put equal amounts. I'm just using a little dab by eye. Remember to put the right lids back on the right tubs. And same again with that. You mix them up, mix them together, and you can see it's already very thick. It cures really fast. So I'm just mixing equal amounts up, and then I'm going to pop some all over this and then all over the back of the spider. And just pop all that on. And then just rest that on there. I am going to go over that spider with some UV resin just to brighten it back up a bit, give it some more sparkle. So once this is dry, I'll leave you with some glamour photos. This has been day 5 of the 13-day Halloween collaboration with Nalula from Nerd Goblin Art. I've been Tony from Georgiesgorgeousgifts. Stay safe, stay spooky, happy crafting, and bye for now.
Shadows stretch and start to crawl. Moonlight whispers down the hall. A cauldron bubbles, it's calling me to craft some chills for all.